Chapter 4. Izzy drew her finger along the spines of the few books in the Olson family library. There wasn't much to choose from, but that was pretty standard from what she had seen of rural folk in South Dakota. It wasn't that they didn't put stock in learning. They just tended to spend their money on more practical things. Teachers, scholars, and the philosophical were the exceptions. Her saddlebag held two of her most treasured books. She had left the others behind. Perhaps the city would sell those possessions to pay for Harlan's burial. In that case, she cared little for what she had left and prayed the items went to someone who would appreciate them. Either Barton or Lula's teaching primer rested on its back at the end of the shelf, as if it had been referenced since it had been placed. Her own hadn't fit in her hastily packed bag. She had read the remainder of it, even after she had married. She had even read through Harlan's homework, and had worked out in her head how she would do each lesson. If she could go back and take the test, she was sure she could pass. But that wasn't meant to be. She had no money for tuition, nor would she feel capable of standing in front of children after the loss of her own. Her hand absently rubbed at her now empty womb, and she prayed that, should she ever find a man who loved her, the Lord wouldn't hold her accountable for Harlan's actions. She would have cherished the child, even if it had looked just like him. Lula swept into the room, and Izzy was immediately reminded of the Lula she had known at school so long ago. Lula had been a breezy spirit, with a ready smile and a big heart. She had been only 14, and, at the time, Barton had tormented Lula to get her attention. It hadn't been until he had come back to the normal school as her teacher that he had stopped being a bully and had wooed Lula in a more traditional way, allowing Lula to return to the woman she had been. "Are you looking for a little something to occupy your time?" Lula smiled and glanced over Izzy's shoulder at the shelf. Izzy draped her hands behind her. "I must admit, I feel out of sorts. I haven't been this free with my time since I was a child." The last few months, every moment had been spent attending to Harlan. It wasn't until they had completely run out of food, and he was too sick to fight back, that he had let her leave to go to the store. Then he had accused her of eating them out of house and home. She hadn't had any tears left by then. Lula rubbed her side gingerly. "I don't think I'll know that feeling again for a long time. This child will be along soon, and then my time will be doubly occupied with chores and caring for the little mite." That ache struck her own womb once again. "It will be both a joy and a blessing. How long until your time?" Hopefully it was enough to prepare her own heart for such an occasion. "The doctor says I have another month. I can't imagine getting much bigger than this." She laughed, but the sound was dry, even a little frightened. "Most of your sisters had given birth before you were married. Did you attend any of them?" Izzy had no sisters, and though she had grown up on a ranch, had never even seen a calf born. She was aware of the mechanics of birthing. Being a help to a laboring woman would be much more than she was ready for. Terrifying, really, and she was not prepared for her own hurts a birth might bring on. "No, I was usually one of the girls scuttled out of the house during a birth. Ruby had hers when I was still young. Jenny preferred no one but her husband there. Hattie has never been blessed. Eva and Frances don't live near home, and Nora and Daisy are younger. So, no, I was never able to attend any." A sick fear plotted a course for Izzy's stomach. She had faced everything life had thrown at her, but a birth? Why would the Lord make her suffer through watching her closest friend have the one thing she had been proud of and lost? Izzy swallowed her feelings and aimed for a smile. "I'm sure we'll figure it all out once the day arrives. We've got time to plan, and it isn't like Mrs. Olson hasn't attended one before." Lula laughed. "Well, she's participated in a few, but I don't know that she's ever been on the other end of the bed. But you're right. We do have plenty of time. I wanted to discuss something with you that is rather delicate." She She turned and strode back across the long room, pulling closed the pocket doors that shut the sitting room off from the rest of the house. The thick oak effectively blocking the noise, silence fell around them. After already discussing the most delicate subject Izzy could imagine, her thoughts skittered to a stop. "Lula, what's the matter?" Her heart raced. The only time Lula had been secretive with her was when she had been hiding her relationship with Barton. "Barton's brother, the one you've met, Conrad, is the matter. I feel you've come to visit us at a most precipitous time, and not just because of this birth." She patted her belly again, but her eyes crinkled with barely contained concern. "Conrad holds a larger portion of the ranch than any of the other brothers, and we all agree it should stay that way." Lula spun her gold wedding band on her finger as she spoke. "The problem is that he can't read, and won't admit it. He's taken to trusting men that he shouldn't, so he doesn't have to confess his deficit to his brothers. We don't know if the men are turning on Conrad, or if Conrad has lost his love for the ranch, but recently his inability to read cost the ranch more than a month's worth of payroll. So, you see the delicacy in handling this." She tipped her head toward the closed door. "No one must know we spoke about this. Conrad is a proud man, and we are not looking to break him, only to help him." Izzy gasped. She could see plainly how Conrad might feel if she knew. He had also just told her, just that day, how he felt the ranch was a place of healing. "He loves it here. He told me so." It hadn't been in so many words, but his reverence when talking about the healing power of the land had conveyed his love. He wouldn't be a party to destroying anything. Lula scrunched her lips into a frown. "He's never said as much to me, but something stands between him and me. The relationships here are different than at my home. My brothers-in-law on my side of the family all treat me like a sister. Barton's brothers, on the other hand, are cordial, but they don't treat me like family, at least not yet." A moment of strain passed over Lula's face. "They may not know how to treat you. They've never had a sister. Give them time. Remember, I come from a large family of brothers, the only girl. Though I dare say they've treated their own sisters by law better than me recently." Lula led her to the couch, and they sat. "I'm so sorry, Izzy. You knew. You told me to stop after the first outing with Harland. You told me he was wooing me with promises and little else, and I didn't listen." Lula took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "I only knew because I saw how he was treating Barton. I heard what he said about you in class after you were married." Lula's cheeks flamed even now, years later. "You never told me just what he said, just that he had spoken of our intimacies in class. I tried so hard to please that man, but nothing I did would measure up. I don't even understand why he wanted me in the first place." Lula sighed and glanced away, then closed her eyes. "It won't do to dwell on it, as much as it hurts, and it's okay to hurt for a time. You'll never hear an apology from him now, and you can't let him hurt you any more. But you also can't let him rule you. He's gone. Let's keep him that way." Lula was right. Izzy wouldn't ever receive the kindness from him she had prayed for. He would never love her now. She was free to move on, but she'd never love again. Love was too vulnerable, and it hurt too badly. "Now," Lula reached for a small volume on the side table Izzy hadn't noticed, "I need to ask you to do something that Barton and I have been unable to do, but I think you're just willful enough to handle it." Izzy straightened her spine. It had been years since anyone had called her that. "If it's true that Conrad loves this land, then someone is taking advantage of him. The only way to eliminate that advantage is to take it away." She handed Izzy the small leather-bound book. "You need to teach Conrad to read, and not let him realize you're doing it. He doesn't understand that we know, but it's well past time. Can you do it?" Izzy plucked the book from Lula's fingers and ran her hand over the spine. A chance to teach, albeit in secret. Maybe the Lord was still listening.